Since the first appearance of the alien symbiote in Secret Wars 8 in 1984, Marvel fans have been equal parts intrigued and enamored with the striking black organism. Jump forward 30 years since the character's full debut in 1988, and Venom is making similar waves in popular culture, with the character starring in their first solo outing in Sony's Venom. And given that we are all just turds floating in the wind, now seems like a good time to say that I'm Ewan, and this is 10 things everyone always gets wrong about Venom. Number 10. Eddie Brock is the only host. A common misconception for casual fans is that Eddie Brock is the one and only Venom, and given that he is the most popular host for the symbiote and the one represented in both 2007's Spider-Man 3 and 2018's Venom, it's easy to see why. However, Venom has had a number of hosts throughout the years, and it may surprise you to learn that Jules is not one of them. Apart from Eddie, the symbiote has bonded with former Scorpion Matt Gargan, Peter's schoolmate Flash Thompson, my personal favourite, and black market dealing ex-Army Ranger Lee Price. Each incarnation of Venom has had a redesign thanks to having a different host each time, and has had a very different relationship with those he has bonded with. Number 9. Spider-Man was the first hero to bond with a symbiote. Thanks to a recent retcon of Venom's origin, however irksome and immediately dated it may have already turned out to be, it became the case that none other than Deadpool was the first to bond with the symbiote. The Merc with a Mouth was the first major hero to interact with the symbiote in Deadpool's Secret Wars, and his red and black costume gets a white and black recolor that makes the mercenary look somehow even cooler. It is heavily implied in this comic that Deadpool's warped psyche is the reason for Venom's own, and that Wade Wilson gave up the symbiote because he did not want to subject the living organism to any more of his depraved thoughts and lunacy. As he leaves, Deadpool happily points Spider-Man in the direction of the symbiote, and the rest, as they say, is history. Number 8. Venom was always a part of Spider-Man 3. When marketing for the third Spider-Man movie began, fans would be forgiven for thinking that Venom was always a part of the film and central to its premise. However, director Sam Raimi has been very outspoken about his lack of knowledge about the character and the push from Sony to provide Venom as a healthy dose of fan service in what ultimately turned out to be the finale to his Spider-Man saga. Raimi and his brother Ivan had focused the story around Peter's relationships with Mary Jane, Aunt May, and Harry Osborn, just like his previous 2 turns as director for the franchise, and even had the Sandman serving as the primary and sole antagonist. When the studio decided Venom should be incorporated, Raimi gave in and the plot became muddled with too much to handle in this trilogy's final chapter. Just don't mention that to Josh Brown. Number 7. The symbiote always protects its host. Venom often protects their host body because without them he would not be anywhere near as powerful as he is with them, but that doesn't mean the symbiote is always obliged to protect its host. When Brock auctions the symbiote off in the comics, it is bought for $100 million by Angelo Fortunato, the son of mobster Don Fortunato. Angelo is frail and is pushed around by his father, so he wants the symbiote to gain strength he doesn't possess himself. Once he has bonded with Venom, Angelo finds out Spider-Man's identity, tries to kill him, and flees when he's defeated. Seeing this cowardice, Venom detaches from Angelo in midair, berating him in doing so, and then leaves him to plummet to his death. Spidey tries to save the helpless kid, but runs out of webbing in typical 90s cartoon style, and Venom is free from being bonded with someone he doesn't deem worthy of their power. Number 6. Carnage was their only child. Carnage is by far the most famous of Venom's offspring and the most sought-after foe for a Venom sequel, but he is by no means their only child. The Life Foundation, who heavily feature in the standalone film, extract seeds from the symbiote in the comic to create 5 offspring Venom. The 5 symbiotes are bonded with members of the Foundation's security personnel and are thusly named Agony, Lasher, Phage, Riot, and Scream. The origin of the symbiotes is retconned in the film, with Riot serving as the leader of the pack rather than as a child of Venom. Also, in the comics, it is Scream who acts as the leader of these offspring and constantly reaches out to Venom for guidance. Also, Venom has a clone who could be considered an offspring in the form of Mania, who was created using Venom's tongue, which he had lost in a battle. Number 5. Venom is the strongest symbiote. Venom is the original symbiote, and therefore he must be the strongest, right? Wrong. In fact, it isn't even one of Venom's offspring that are the strongest symbiotes in Marvel's lore. It is their de facto grandson, Toxin. Toxin is the offspring of Carnage, who, in turn, is Venom's aforementioned child. Venom is a powerhouse and more than capable of holding their own against some of the most famous masked faces in Marvel Comics. Yet, even in their solo movie, Venom is shown to have been bested by other symbiotes. Most famously, Venom has often had to team up with Spider-Man to battle Carnage, but Toxin is a different beast entirely. They have the same abilities as their predecessors, as well as even more impressive super strength, speed, and the power to change their body parts into weapons, an ability given to Riot in Sony's movie. Number 4. Sound is their biggest weakness. Spider-Man 3 depicted sound as the best way to deal with the symbiote, and while it is indeed an effective method, it isn't the best way to tackle the alien. Fire is by far the more effective countermeasure, and is something that the symbiote is completely afraid of, and to Venom's credit, they do actually show this off in the film too. Number 3. Their favourite food is brains. Part of the outcry for Sony's Venom to be more violent stemmed from this desire to see the hulking alien devour their prey in far gorier detail. The symbiote refers to eyes, lungs, and dat pancreas as snacks after all, but his favourite meal is a good old-fashioned brain. However, it is not actually the brains that Venom craves. It is a chemical within them called Josh, get in here, I need your help. Can you read this?
Phenylethylamine.
Yeah, that's good, yeah. Anyway, they need that word that Josh just said in order to survive. Fortunately for anyone who finds themselves up against Venom, comic book Eddie Brock discovered that the very same chemical can be found in chocolate, and it soon became the favoured treat for Spidey's nemesis. Number 2, the symbiote is evil. Many people believe that the symbiote is itself an evil being. However, this is actually incorrect. The symbiote is only as good or bad as its host, and despite it seeming to make Peter Parker evil in Spider-Man 3, it only exaggerates the qualities and ambitions of its host. This is actually a part of Venom that is handled pretty well, with Eddie managing to talk to the symbiote out of eating what he deems to be good people and coming to a compromise with his alien accomplice to only eat bad people. Of course, the determining factor in whether a person is good or bad is entirely up to Eddie himself, and so Venom is only doing what he's being told to by his co-pilot. A great example of the symbiote fighting for good is when he bonded with Flash Thompson, ditched the government for good, and joined the Guardians of the Galaxy as a Space Knight. Number 1, he was the brainchild of Todd McFarlane. While it is undeniable that Spawn creator Todd McFarlane and David Michelinie pulled together to create the character of Venom, the original idea for the black costume that would eventually go on to create comic book history was not. In the 1980s, Marvel actually ran a competition for fans that had amazing creativity, and fan Randy Schuller created the black costume for Spider-Man. He suggested that the suit be made by the Fantastic Four's Reed Richards to increase Spider-Man powers by a substantial amount, and hey presto, the rest was history. Marvel's editor-in-chief at the time, Jim Shooter, responded to Randy, and he was paid $220 for his services and for the idea that would go on to become every Spider-Man fan's favourite villain at the time, and was even offered the chance to write for Marvel. Unfortunately, this didn't work out for Schuller, but he can always hold his head up high, knowing that he spawned one of the most recognisable members of Spider-Man's rogues gallery.